Anurag Mairal. Dr. Anurag Mairal holds an MS in chemical engineering from IIT Bombay, and he has earned a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Colorado, and also has an MBA from the University of California at Berkeley. Dr. Anurag Mairal, the stage is yours, sir.
Anil ji and Dr. Nachiketa. What an amazing session this has been. What an amazing conference this has been. The session that we're going to have, it's going to be a little less interesting than the previous one. If you were in the previous one, that was about art and had a lot of fun discussion. This is a little drier, but hopefully we'll make it interesting. We'll throw a joke in or two. It's really about quality education in higher education, in growing economies. That's accessible to all. And we have amazing panelists today. And I'm going to invite them up on the stage, and then we can get started very quickly. I've been given warning clearly that the time has to be kept. So we're going to have exactly 10 minutes of presentations by each of the panelists, and then we'll get into a Q&A and a discussion. We'll see how much we succeed with that. Let me invite Professor Yogesh Singh up on the stage. Professor Singh is a Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. He is a long-time academic leader. Before University of Delhi, he was at Delhi Technology University. He has an additional charge of Director of School of Planning and Architecture. He has been at a number of different universities in academic leadership roles. And his degrees are in computer science and engineering, and his PhD is from IIT Kharagpur, and he has got a number of awards nationally. Let's give a big round of applause to Professor Yogesh Singh. Let me also invite, I don't know if Professor Virendra Tewari is in the audience. Okay, there you go. He found his wallet, which is great. Professor Virendra Tewari is a well-known educationist. He's the director of IIT Kharagpur, but he also has additional charge of IIT Bhubaneswar and IIT Kalyani. All of his education was at IIT Kharagpur. His research has been in agricultural engineering, and he's very well known for digital farming solutions, which is very relevant for India right now. He too has a number of national and international awards, which I will not go into in the interest of time. Our next panelist is Shri Samir Somaiya ji. His bio is very, very long, so I'm going to read a few parts of it. He's the Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University, and he's also President of Somaiya Vidyavihar. He's Chairman of the Somaiya Medical Trust and Somaiya Institute of Applied Agricultural Research. 40,000 students, pretty large, and have 550-bed hospitals. He also has a responsibility for Godavari biorefineries. He's a chemical engineer, like some of us here in the audience. And he's the president of IMC Chamber of Commerce. He's got some very interesting international awards, including something from Italy government as well. So let's just do a big round of applause to all of these panelists. This session is really focused on higher education. So universities of India and innovation and really higher quality of education through these higher ed institutions, and making them at par with or better than global institutions. So I'm going to invite each of the panelists 10 minutes each, and then we're going to do a Q&A, as I mentioned. Hopefully, really good discussion. Professor Yogesh Singh.
Good afternoon. Namaste. Professor Anurag Mairal from Stanford University and the chairperson of the session. Professor Virendra Kumar Tewari, Director, IIT Kharagpur. Professor Samir Somaiya, Chancellor, Somaiya Vidyavihar University. Respected delegates and my dear friends, good afternoon to all of you. कल दिल्ली से जो एयर इंडिया की फ़्लाइट आई, उससे मुझे आने का मौका मिला, और जैसे ही फ़्लाइट बैंकॉक में लैंड हुई और एक अनाउंसमेंट हुई कि स्वर्णभूमि एयरपोर्ट बैंकॉक में आपका स्वागत है, तो मन में एक खुशी उल्लास का भाव हुआ कि ये भारत की संस्कृति है, ये भारत का संस्कार है और ये भारत की शिक्षा है। एक मन में अचानक सबको भाव आया, हर भारतीय के मन में, कि देखिए भारत के बाहर भारत की अनुभूति कैसे हो सकती है, ये हम सबके लिए गर्व की बात है। और आज का जो बोलना है मुझे, ये भारत सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी चैलेंजेस एंड अपॉर्चुनिटीज। I would like to quote Nelson Mandela, and this quote is written on the entrance gate of University of South Africa. He said, "Destroying any nation doesn't require the use of atomic bombs or the use of long-range missiles. It only requires lowering the quality of education and allowing cheating in the examination system. The resultant effect is patient dies at the hand of such doctors, buildings collapses at the hands of such engineers, money is lost at the hands of such economists and accountants, humanity dies at the hands of such scholars, justice is lost at the hands of such judges. The collapse of education system is the collapse of a nation." That's why this is very, very important and extremely important. The thoughts of Nelson Mandela has highlighted how absolute state of anarchy prevails all across the nation when the population is not educated in the real terms. This word real term is also very, very important, because the real difference of learning without a purpose and purposive education, which not only helps in gaining knowledge, but also help to develop wisdom and worldview. Wasim Barelvi has rightly said कि डिग्रियां तो तालीम के खर्चे की रसीदें हैं साहिब, डिग्रियां तो तालीम के खर्चे की रसीदें हैं साहिब, इल्म तो वो है जो आपके किरदार में झलके. So meaning thereby, your education is just a piece of paper. Your education is just a piece of paper. Sorry, your degree is just a piece of paper. Your education should be seen in your behavior. And someone, similar type of thing is शील विनय आदर्श श्रेष्ठता. शील विनय आदर्श श्रेष्ठता, तार बिना झंकार नहीं है, शिक्षा क्या स्वर साध सकेगी यदि नैतिक आधार नहीं है, यदि नैतिक आधार नहीं है. And that's why, the भारतीय ज्ञान परंपरा, if we have to define education, we say समझ की समझ को विकसित करना ही शिक्षा है. And it means that the education is ingraining the understanding in an understandable manner for the overall development of human beings. And when we talk about the challenges of central universities, this is my topic, and central universities are playing a very, very important role in the growth and development of our country. But when we want to talk about the challenges, the biggest challenge is what? Biggest challenge is the leadership. If we are able to identify right kind of leader, then most of the situations are easily addressed. Charles Morris has rightly said, I am more afraid of an army of 100 sheep led by a lion than an army of 100 lions led by a sheep. That is the importance of leadership. That's why identification and development of leadership. Any country, if we want to progress, we have to develop such leaders. So such instruments should be designed and deployed in the system. Otherwise, we will not get right kind of leaders, and then impact is visible in any central university or in any higher education institution of the country. When we say the leaders, what type of leaders do we want? A leader should be decisive, ready to accept challenges, able to innovate, keep an unbiased open mind, meaningfully connect with every strata of the university community, can take bold decisions where other hesitates. Most of the time, leaders hesitate to take decisions. They have the position, but they don't want to take decisions. But the purpose should be overall growth of the university and larger good to others. That's why we need such leaders, and how can we do it? This is the one of the most important challenge. Next is the recruitment of teachers. This is also very, very important. Although we may feel that recruitment of teachers, what is great in that? But we should recruit teacher-type teachers. The point is, right now the whole system is what? Marks, degree. If you have research publications, that's fine. But those are some of the eligibility criteria, that's fine. But when we say recruitment of teacher-type teacher, it's a very, very big challenge. You just, if I ask you to please close your eyes and think about a good teacher. In your life, you must have seen good number of teachers, but who was the best teacher in your life? क्यों अच्छा लगता है आपको? क्यों मन में आता है वो? क्या अच्छा पढ़ाता था? क्या अच्छा इंसान था? क्या अपना लगता था? क्या उससे कुछ अच्छे भाव आते थे? अगर ऐसा है, तो वैसा टीचर बनना और उसकी फिर रिक्रूटमेंट हो जाना, it's a biggest challenge. And in Bharat, now time has come to think and rethink about it, how to appoint such teachers. And if we are not able to do so, then we should have some programs to do it, how to inculcate such value system in the teachers, then and only then that can be transferred to the students. कहने से तो नहीं होता ना. That's why this is very, very important. Other aspect is he or she should have research potential, original thinker, positive mindset. Because teacher का काम क्या है? देने का काम है. क्या देने का काम है? ज्ञान, समय, अपनापन, परिश्रम, प्रेरणा और संस्कार. देने का काम है, लेने का काम नहीं है टीचर का. और मैं कहता हूं कई बार कि लेने देना भी छोड़ो, रोने का काम नहीं है. टीचर हैज नो राइट कि वो रोना शुरू कर दे. टीचर हैज नो राइट, एंड इफ वी आर डूइंग सो, वी आर नॉट टीचर टाइप. It's a biggest challenge. Another important aspect is in India is a country of 1.4 crore people. So our challenges are very different from the Western world or the Eastern world. Then the question is, when we design the recruitment process, how to eliminate, because whenever we advertise a post, we get thousands of applications. Objective, transparent criteria. It's a big challenge. Many people are doing research on that. But right now, the rudimentary system which we are following it, the time has come to revisit that also. Next is the students. Most of the central universities are getting bright students, but up to 2022, we used to admit students on the basis of +2 marks. We used to admit students on the basis of +2 marks. But some boards are lenient, some boards are strict. So there was no parity, but now the government of Bharat has introduced a common university entrance test. So one good step has taken, and now most of the universities are getting benefits of that step. Another quote. You know, in education fraternity, we say quality is inversely proportional to quantity. I say it is a myth. When we say quality is inversely proportional to quantity, it means only 1 minute remaining. 10 minutes, koi nahi, chalo, koi baat nahi. Then, but you know, this is a myth, and for a country of large size country, it is just not possible. You keep on doing so. That's why we need quality teaching without compromising quantity. Expectations are very different from central universities. When we say what should be the size of a central university, like Delhi University, we have 6 lakh students, but few universities have 20,000-30,000 students. What should be the optimum size of a central university? In my opinion, it should not be less than 15,000 students if character is unitary in nature. Unitary universities should have at least 20,000 students on the campus. And we have good number of central universities where, and many other institutions where size is 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. We have to revisit from the policy also, because Bharat cannot afford this luxury. We have bright minds, and another important aspect is the funding. Most of the universities are in central university particularly are funded by the government. So there are no issues as such, but you know, worldwide, global realities are very different. And when we say universities are supposed to have a good amount of money there, it means what? New ways of financing the higher education should be designed, but new ways of funding central university doesn't necessarily mean charging higher fees from the students. The student fee, the contribution from the student fee in any case should not be more than 20% of the annual expenditure. That should be the bar. So, but there should be another ways and means, research, consultancy, so many things. And the infrastructure and expansion. Whenever, only last quote, when I became Vice Chancellor, Tushar bhai baithe hain yahan pe, when I became the Vice Chancellor of MS University Baroda, then I discussed with some new some senior Vice Chancellor, what should I do? I want to be a successful Vice Chancellor, what should I do? Then the common advice which came to me, which is very important for the leadership, do not do recruitment in the university, don't do construction in the university, and don't do any expansion activities in the university. Your life will be very good, your time will be good, then what should I do? Then they talk about research, talk about innovation, talk about originality. ऐसी बातें सारी करो जो 5-10 साल से पहले रिजल्ट ना दें. This is the formula, but this is not. समुद्र जहाज इसलिए नहीं बनाया जाता कि शोर पे खड़ा रहे, किनारे खड़ा रहे. जहाज इसलिए होता है कि वो पानी में जाए. जो भी खतरा होगा वो होगा, पर पानी में जाने की हिम्मत हो, तभी ये यूनिवर्सिटीज का भला होता है. बातें तो बहुत है, पर नचितिका जी ने टाइम ही मुझे 10 मिनट दिया, वो खत्म हो गया.
Namaskar to all of you. First of all, I am very grateful to Nachiketa ji for giving me this opportunity to be here. In fact, about a month back, he just called me and he said that something like this congress is being held in Bangkok, and why don't you go and tell something about what you are doing? Bangkok, I came in 1999 I was deputed by Government of India for a semester to teach a course in AIT. And therefore, I thought I got an opportunity to visit Bangkok again. And thank you, Nachiketa Tewari ji, and all the organizers who have given me this opportunity to be here and share a few of my thoughts. Professor Anurag Mairal ji, Stanford University, USA, the chairman of this particular session. Professor Samir Somaiya ji, Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University, Bharat. And then my very beloved friend Yogesh Singh ji, the Vice Chancellor of one of the biggest universities of Bharat, Delhi University. All the seniors, brothers and sisters seated in this auditorium. I have been given a very challenging task by Nachiketa ji that you compare that where you are as compared to MIT and export. I think that will be wrong, because if you must have heard that when we want to compare Kapil Dev and then Dhoni, people would say that no, these two people belong to two different eras. And therefore, I would not venture into this particular difficult task, but I will share some of my thoughts of what we are doing at IIT Kharagpur. Well, I must tell something about IIT Kharagpur. In fact, it was born out of jail in 1951. And that time, it was designed on the lines of MIT. And possibly that has made Nachiketa ji to say that you must compare where you are as you were thought to be on the lines of MIT. Because at that time we were 42 teachers and 224 students. And therefore, the ratio of teachers and students was on a similar note as was there in MIT. But today, I think the ratio remains as 3.54, and we are at about 19.54 or so. So therefore, there is no need of any comparison. Yes, I would say that there has been a lot of changes over the year from the time 1951 to this time. In fact, I have been a student of that place. I entered in 1974, graduated, post-graduated, did PhD, became faculty, professor, head of the department, chairman, JE, organizing chairman, JERI, then now currently the director of the institute by good grace of God. I don't know what I did. So I have been in this position. I am in the last leg of my journey, but I think since I have seen the growth and development of this institute, we have tried to do something different. In all the aspects of the growth and development of education and its outreach. It was so fortunate that we got the National Education Policy in 2020, and I joined on 31st of December 2019. Therefore, I got the opportunity because for the last 9 years, the course curriculum was not changed. So we took this opportunity and this program and we made a lot of changes on the lines of NEP 2020. We have now made arrangements so that a student which they used to go for only 2 months or about 8 to 10 weeks anywhere for internship, now they can go for 1 complete semester. Now the changes that we have done is all the courses will be of 4-year duration. We had certain BSc, MSc courses which were of 3-year and 2-year duration. I think we have changed those to BS and MS. Then there was hardly any talk about the consultancy that we are doing. Of course, that doesn't mean that I have just started consultancy only when I joined. There was talk, but I think I will try to infuse in them. And I moved with a passion of change in the system, not a director-driven system that I wanted to do. And I said, friends, I am one of you. In fact, I was appointed one of the faculty members from IIT Kharagpur, and therefore I said that, friends, I am one of you. And let us try to solve the problem of all the institute, in all problems of the institute, sitting across the table. You come, when you have a problem, come with a set of solutions, and we'll take one of them sitting across the table over a cup of tea. Then we have outreach. In fact, we have gone across to have the PG degree from UK, Australia, Germany, USA, Canada. So we have now postgraduate degrees, joint degrees at postgraduate, as well as PhD degrees as well in the outreach form. Yes, we are getting money, but I think we need to have more and more collaborations with respect to getting more and more people from outside so that we can enhance in our growth so far as our ranking is concerned. It's a very sensitive thing which we think of. What is your ranking? Now, our ranking, I would like to say that today we are third in all the IITs in QS ranking in 2023. When I joined, it was 314, and now it is at 271, which is just behind Bombay and Delhi, so far as the Indian context is concerned. And recently, I think we are in the 59th, so far as in the whole Asia is concerned, in sustainability case is taken care of. We have a lot of changes we have done with regard to the women. I think we have increased the women, I think the heads of the departments, even the deans, as well as many portfolios we have shared with them, and we encourage more and more students, girl students as well. And in every committee that we have, we would like to have one women candidate. We are thinking of more and more industry collaboration, and therefore we have got a DRDO center where we are talking of industry and academia congregation. Because unless we do some research which is relevant to the industry, there is no point. We are also doing a lot of work with the society, because we believe that whatever you do, I think this must have something. I think this is there for you to see what we have done in the campus life and everything that I have just done. I think please keep shifting. But I will tell you that these are all we have to do for the society for which we are existing. And we are working on the taxpayers' money. And therefore, everything we have to think in their line. And I also talk to my friends that, friends, whatever you are thinking, you must think that we have to ultimately deliver to the society. The benefit of our research, benefit of the education which our Yogesh ji was talking, I think we have to definitely think it must go to the society. We are also reaching out to, through the Rural Development Center which we have and the Agricultural Engineering Department that we have, to the farmers. And we have a Center of Excellence, and through that we have about 96 incubations of the agricultural sector. And we are trying to nurture them on various aspects. We are also trying to fund them through NABARD. NABARD has given us about 10 crores, and through that we are trying to transfer them. So we are trying to put in whatever the research that we are doing. Today, you know that our population has increased, and today we are 7.8 billion or so across the globe. And by 2050, it is going to be 29.8 billion or 10 billion or so. I think there is a responsibility of a country like ours to feed other smaller countries as well. And therefore, the food production is one very important. And in this respect, I think we have to enhance food. And you see that in this country itself, as he has said, that we started when we were, in 1947, we were about 33 crores, and now we are 140 crores. What has happened, the land has shrunk, and therefore we need to produce more and more out of that. And for that, we have to take high-end technologies. which we are introducing into our agricultural machine design, etc. We are taking help of the robots, drones, and other high-end technology of electronics, computer science, image processing. I myself, when I started working with this, I read some of the courses, sat in the class of some of my teachers who are there in different departments, because we must learn some of the things in order to apply the same thing. See, for example, AI system. The AI system has been that every department, every student who has joined in 2020, he must have at least one course in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And very soon we are going to start a Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science in IIT Kharagpur. It is already on the anvil, and we are going to get it passed very soon, and it will be started. Now, we thought that how to become. We have a target of becoming top 10 in the world, QS ranking. I think you will say why this man is thinking, but by the time I joined, I said, we must think of stars, and then only we will reach to the stars. That's why we have thought of being top 10 in the world. And for that, what we have done, we have about 52 departments, centers, and schools. And all those 52 department centers, somebody was talking of dance, etc. Yes, we have Academy of Classical and Folk Arts, where we want that the students should also learn, and about more than 1,000 students. We have about 16,720 students on the campus, a campus which is about 2,100-acre area, and it houses about 26,000 people population, which is fully residential. And therefore, we have many types of stresses on the families as well as the students as well. So we have also a center of happiness. So you should be surprised that we do have a center of happiness. And as Yogesh was talking, we are thinking of making leaders. And we have an Academy of Leadership as well. So we have taken certain niche areas in which we are talking. We are talking of affordable healthcare. We are talking of advanced transportation. We are talking of the advanced infrastructure. We are talking of Industry 4.0, etc. I think we are going in the direction that we will definitely reach in top 10 in the world, and therefore will be closer to MIT and Oxford. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Namaskar to you all. I would like to thank Nachiketa ji and Swami Vijnananand ji for inviting me here today. It's indeed a pleasure. Anurag ji, Yogesh ji, Virendra ji, to everyone in the audience. This is the topic given to me, building a multidisciplinary world-class university, a Bharatiya university. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And I'll talk in a sense of a story, my story, and how that story translates into what I want to do. And I'll try and do it in 10 minutes or less. It starts with in 1942, where my grandfather created a school in rural Maharashtra. He was born poor. The school is a Marathi medium school in 1942. He started a company in 1939. So 3 years later, he's established the school in 1942. And I think that reflects a little bit about India then and India today. And I think we need to make India available to people who study in their local languages, which we should value as much as we do or more, because today we don't, our English. So if this is, suppose it's a Marathi medium, we run a Kannada medium school, we're going to start a Hindi medium school, plus what we do English. And our mottos were Jnana Devatu Kaivalyam, yani Jnanat Evatu Kaivalyam, knowledge only liberates, and knowledge to be used for what? Na Manushat Paro Dharma, which is there is no religion greater than that lived in the service of humanity. So we'll go. So I'll just go further. So we have a lot of programs, but what was the traditional university system? Was that a university has decided the curriculum, the college transferred it to the student, evaluation was done. Not much freedom for a affiliated college to a university. I really wanted to, we can just go to the next slide. And I just wanted to put my father, he created, he was very keen on religion to be brought on campus. He thought religion has endured time, and it is a force today that divides, but it can be a great force that also unites. And particularly our own culture, our Sanskriti, he thought must find place in our discourse and our education. He also talked about interfaith dialogue because he said with those you disagree with, you must engage. If you don't engage with them, you don't come to some common cause. So that was there. Go to the next one. So I'll just go. He talked about Cornell, Harvard, MIT, not to talk about them. So maybe we don't have to go with these slides because then my time will run out. So I just wanted to go study to the US. Looked nice on brochure. I was not a very well-traveled guy who went there, but brochure pe bahut acha lag raha tha. So I wanted to go. Father said, nothing doing. You'll go there, you'll get married and not come back. I was a little, really keen. I wanted to see the place, go study. My grandfather just said, why don't you study at the Somaiya College? It is a good college. I said, grandfather, this is a Mumbai-based college. That is a world-class university. How can you? So immediately he said, go, but promise me that when you come back, you will make our institution such that in your lifetime, a student who goes and wants to study at Cornell will also put in an application at Somaiya. So I think I traded dreams with him. He gave me 6 years to study, so I therefore dedicate the rest of my life to fulfill the promise I gave him. But that said, when I went to Cornell, I really saw that freedom of choosing electives. I'm studying chemical engineering. I could take a course in Indian meditation text. Sports was compulsory. Knowing how to swim was, you couldn't get a degree without knowing how to swim. So I just thought that, well, this is very interesting learning. The content was good, it was well delivered, and it was really exciting. So coming back, just one step back. So I decided, I also later on, 15 years later, went to study at Harvard and got experience at MIT. Very enamored of the place. I thought, wow, fantastic. Look at the courses. I studied at the Media Lab, at the Strata Center. And I think there was a lot of incubation. It was very exciting. And I was offered a chance to teach at Cornell in chemical engineering. So I go 1 month every 2 years, and I continue to do so. I've done it about 8 times since then. But, one next slide. So just going back, so then I wanted to apply for university status. I applied in Maharashtra to the Maharashtra government for university status. And I asked an old professor friend of mine to help me to make the university application. At which time, when I was telling him about Cornell and Harvard and MIT, he said, learn from us, do not seem to become us. You have a great legacy, you have a great heritage. Take what the best is from us, but keep your soul with what you have. And I also credit him for doing that, and then we applied for a university, and we got a university status. And with that university status, the NEP allows us, which is now what the government does, great porosity between institutions and learning. So often when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, I am trying to do simple stuff, which sounds because, we are a large system. We have 20,000 students in K-12 and 20,000 students in university level. So how do you even structure simple stuff like calendars being similar or timetables being similar? Because my thought is you can create, like if you have Professor Virendra saying AI must be necessary. Suppose I say that every student must take some course in Hindi or Marathi or Gujarati or something like that. If the timetable is similar, the design can enable you for porosity. So the student can take Madhya Kali in Hindi, Kavya as a course, or it could take meditation, it could be Advaita Shastra, or it could be something like the Yog Vasisht. These are the things that we want to start doing, but unless I get the timetable right, I can't do it. Similarly, we started doing sports. Similarly, if you go to the next slide, go ahead. I also thought, okay, now when that professor told me there's so much in your heritage you must learn, I thought, well, what was it in my heritage other than that, personal heritage plus common? I said, great, I had great sports experience. How can I create the best sports facilities in the city? I learned a lot about the Bhagavad Gita from my father. My mother used to love singing ghazals and bhajans. How can you bring some of that? My father-in-law was an architect. So how can you create super architecture? How can you create? So all those things we started trying to create in our university. My mother was she used to sing at home, traditional family, so not singing outside much. But, my dada was a kind of a, father-in-law who was a good guy, but he didn't think, but I thought, okay, now I create a school of Maya Somaiya School of Music and Dance. My father was an art collector, so building a museum and a school of fine art so that the students can get an appreciation of what Indian miniatures were like. If there is a ragini, and if you have a painting on a ragini, what is the rag that is sung with it like? So this is the kind of stuff that we want to do. And we also my father had created a program of Bharatiya Sanskriti Pitam. After we became a university, we created what is the KJ Somaiya Institute of Dharma Studies. And in Dharma Studies, we want to start bringing the Hindu tradition there. We also have the Buddhist tradition, we have the Jain tradition, and we also want to we'll bring in, you can bring in the Sikh tradition. We also do work in interfaith dialogue. But talking about research, my work is in 1 minute, okay. Biorefining. So I also do a lot of work in agriculture. And the whole idea is I saw farmers working on Panchagavya. And when I look at my academics, we are not even taught what is Panchagavya. And we suddenly realize doodh, dahi, ghee, all these things, if you take gobar, gomutra, and we suddenly saw farming actually coming alive. So if you do the soil microbiome, what does it do? And so these are the kind of research projects that we want to give students internships with, based on Jnana Devatu Kaivalyam, so knowledge coming together, old tradition, new tradition, bring it back, and so we go forward. Go to the next. So this is, go back, so one step back. So we want to be a world-class research and teaching institution, proudly Bharatiya, global in the reach of our ideas, and universal in the service we provide. Next one. So that's, that's a picture of 70% of the campus in Mumbai. It's a 50-acre campus. We've not built the bottom right-hand side, which is being built. There's one building which is in temple architecture, Somnath style, dreamt of by my grandfather in the 70s, and it's going to be a whole center that we are doing. But 70 to 80% of this campus is built. Mumbai is the heartbeat of the country, and the country today is among the top economies of the world and growing fast. This is what we want to do. I will end with a response to one of the share that was said, and if I may, I think we are just beginning as a country, and we want to make our place there. तो आपको एक जवाब, साज़े दिल में भूल गया मैं, तो दूसरी लाइन बोल दूंगा, जिंदगी जीने की बहाने बाकी हैं, ये दूसरी पंक्ति है, जिंदगी जीने के बहाने बाकी हैं, गैरों की दहलीज पे क्यों भीख मांगते हो यारो, अपने घर में अभी खजाने बाकी.
This is supposed to be a view from the outside, but I'm not an outsider. I've grown up here, and I've, worked with India for the last 17 years. So what I'll do is I'll very quickly, initial slides, I'll go through them quickly because they're really setting up the context. Then I'll talk about a case study of partnership between Stanford Biodesign, Stanford University, AIIMS, and IIT Delhi. And then I'll linger on in my last slide, which is really recommendations. So this slide really talks about the history of innovation in India. My talk is really about how do we teach innovation in higher education institutions. And it's important to know what the state of innovation in India used to be. India was a very innovative country. And I'll come back to why it used to be an innovative country. And then when you look at the list of innovations in the pre-Islamic era and British Raj, the number drops dramatically because we were torn by strife and resources were not quite there, and there was no principle or philosophy of curiosity. And then what you see in the independent India, there's been some work, but a lot of that has been done by diaspora. Within the country, the innovations have been limited, mainly because we're really trying to educate our population, bring them at par to Western countries, and that's been a challenge for the institutions, including the one that I was educated in. Next slide. And this is really a summary of the law. What is the lost centuries, the cause of lost centuries of innovation for Bharat? There a number of reasons. First and foremost, there was a dismantling of experiential learning. Gurukuls used to be very experiential. You learned by experiencing the world around you. So it provided that context, local context. The tradition of innovation, tradition of knowledge transfer, it was interrupted. You had stasis in science because of the conflicts that were going on. You also had these imposed, this part on is British Raj. You had imposed colonial solutions, such as jute was replaced by synthetic fiber and on and on. That limited the potential for innovation. And last one is that there was a loss of local innovation to market value chain, and I'm going to come back to that as well. And the very last thing is we were forced, because of resource constraints, to do jugaad rather than structured, scaled innovation, which we used to do before. Next slide. independent India has been really India. It's not been Bharat, okay? So that phrase is used in a particular way. So there's the good and the bad and the ugly. And I think that first and foremost, there's been tremendous amount of training through IITs, advanced science and technology, so that's a good. A reservoir of respect for education, that is very good. No matter which part of India you go to, even our maids and menial workers have tremendous value for education, so that's good. There is a problem-solving mindset still, but it's very tactical, the jugaad mindset that we talk about, which does not lead to scaled innovation. And the bad and the ugly part is that we have very much of a task orientation. This is what British education taught us. We were a cog in the wheel. Macaulay wanted us to be a cog in the wheel, and that led us to become very task oriented, which you deal with a student that's coming out of our current institutions, really good in tasks, but not really good in problem solving. And then it's very top down, not ground up, because we have lost that connection with the ground. And Gurukuls, loss of Gurukuls was part of that. And the last one is colonial view of indigenous innovation. How many of you would prefer to use or buy an Indian-derived or Indian-made product compared to one that's coming from outside? Most of us would not, mainly because we associate quality with what's coming out from outside. And that view has to change. That colonial view has to change. Next slide. Today is a very interesting moment. There's substantial societal need. You know, there's food, education, health. No matter which area we look at, there are huge challenges, 1.4 billion people. That's a problem and an opportunity. We have aspirational young Bharat, which is willing to venture out. And venture out, as the term is used very, very intentionally. There's a steady arc of economic growth because of the advective effect of macroeconomy. So we will continue to grow economically. And there is aligned geopolitical environment and policy making. Our current government seems to be very focused on India becoming a dominant economy, a leader, and geopolitics is supporting it. Next slide. So here's the 5-pillar framework for innovation in Bharat. This is really back to future. I'm back to future because what we used to have in the past was very futuristic. We need to have distributed, empowered innovation community. We need to have deep focus on local unmet needs. I think a lot of our solutions are still focused on the part of the society that is very broad and that is very high level and very elite. We need solutions from the ground up. We need a friction-free innovation to market framework, and policy will play a role in it. We need acceleration of an enabling policy regime and a public goods infrastructure similar to what has happened with UPI, which has been a game changer, and Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission and the government e-marketplace. And the last one is that we need global world-class partnership on emerging technologies, technologies that are critical for the future, AI, quantum, quantum physics and things of that sort. Next slide. This is where I come to higher ed and innovation. I think we need to change our lens, and this is, all of our institutions, including the institution I'm on the board of, we need it to be not about jobs and tasks, but we need to be about problem solving. We also need to have a functioning innovation ecosystem, mentors, funding, ecosystem, partners, and access to markets. We have faculty that have never been trained on innovation. You were talking about faculty members who are teachers, right? Who teach, who have that mindset of teaching. So we also need teachers who have a mindset of teaching innovation or problem solving. So that's really appropriate comment there. And we also need case studies of success that can be scaled. So because exemplars of success create the way. So the reason we see so much of IT entrepreneurship economy in India right now, because there were some early innovators that succeeded, and that created exemplars that everybody else wants. We need that in every space, including in agricultural innovation. Next slide. Yeah. So I'm going to just do a very quickly the case study for Stanford Biodesign in India. Stanford Biodesign is a health technology innovation program at Stanford. It uses design thinking to identify unmet clinical needs and then solve those problems, and then scale them. We started this partnership 17 years back with AIIMS and IIT Delhi, and for the first 8 years, we only taught this innovation framework. And then as we were teaching this innovation framework, we realized that most of these innovators were not going to succeed because their solutions were not going to get to the patients. India did not have an ecosystem supporting these innovators. They didn't have manufacturers, they didn't have pilot facilities, they didn't have clinical trials facilities. Those things didn't exist the way they exist in the US, for example. So we spent phase 2 of our work in India from 2015 to 2019 on bringing these founders together, called it Founders Forum. And then we realized that even though many of these innovators are going to succeed in the private sector, most of India's healthcare is provided in public health system, and public health is a state subject. So we need to work with the state government and the federal government to create the right kind of policy environment to procure these technologies and implement that in the public health system. That's the only way these companies are going to become from small startup to mid-sized companies to large companies and create this vibrant innovation to market ecosystem. So that's what we have tried to do. This is the framework. It has 3 steps in our framework: identify unmet needs on the ground, and then invent a solution for it, and then implement it. This is what we taught. Next slide. And the outcome of that has been there are now in India 20 plus medtech innovation programs. 11 of them are formal programs funded by DBT and ICMR. There are 1,000 health technology innovators in India. This is the second or third largest innovation ecosystem for health technologies in the world. Just in 17 years, India has gotten there. So India can do it. There have been more than $1 billion invested by the government. Government gets a lot of credit, especially over the last decade, and investors to support these companies. These companies would not have survived without that because there was not an existing investor ecosystem at that time. Next slide. Next 4 slides are just examples of technologies. I'm not going to go through in details because I want to save time for Q&A. This is a neonatal hearing screening device. It is used in rural settings where they don't have sound boxes, where insulated sound boxes don't exist. This uses the hardware and AI solution to filter out the noise. You can actually screen newborns in rural settings for hearing loss or impaired hearing, and that could save decades of learning disability in these children and make sure that they become part of the mainstream. So really remarkable innovation. It's the first innovation of its kind in the world in 50 years. This has already saved tens of thousands of babies, has been used with hundreds of thousands of babies around the world, 12 plus countries, and it was developed by Dr. Avijit Bansal, a foot pedal operated neonatal resuscitator, which can allow somebody with lower level of skill, or even a nurse practitioner, to save a baby, a newborn that is facing asphyxia. Next slide. This is a remarkable solution for ophthalmological disorders. It's a screening solution that can be set up in rural settings so that you can actually screen patients for eye diseases, and the data comes to the central facility. The patients can be moved from those primary centers to secondary and tertiary care centers as the conditions are become apparent and more advanced. And this is the last slide. This is for cardiovascular disease screening. Both the previous innovation, this innovation has already been served, have already served 15 million Indian patients each. This technology has already saved tens of thousands of people who had heart attack in rural areas. So India can do it. It has the potential. It has the intellectual capacity. We just need the right kind of partnership. So these are my recommendations. Number 1, introduce training innovation, training of innovation in frameworks in core curriculum at all levels. I would argue starting with middle school. Start with that. And by the time they get to higher education, they should already have decent understanding of what the innovation frameworks are, so they can become problem solvers. Recruit students not for grades. I think my fellow panelists talked about it, but for capacity to problem solve. They should not be grade earners. They should be problem solvers. We should invest in training faculty, going back to faculty, and recruiting from global centers of excellence. But we should incentivize them heavily on solutions for Bharat's unique needs. They should not be working on problems that are more relevant to the global setting, although that's important. I think they should start with solving India's problems first. And the last part is we should actually, in higher education, learn to partner extensively with industry, government, and civic society. If we don't do that, we will work in silos, and our solutions are not going to go anywhere. Thank you. Your perspective in terms of higher education, Yogesh ji, you talked about collapse of education or lowering of educational quality can lead to destruction of nations, right? And you talked about how degree is really just a receipt of bills paid, but it's not. It's really the education of what you learned is really critical. And you talked about, this is really important, you talked about need to train the trainers, train the faculty members in teaching, in innovation and things like that. What do the next 10 years look like for India's higher education system if these things have to be accomplished?
First of all, Bharat is doing very well, and higher education institutions are also doing very well. Education drives economy, or economy drives education. This is an open question. But at least both are interrelated. India took 60 years after independence to become $1 trillion economy. Next $1 trillion was added only after 7 years, that was in 2014. In 2019, we became $3 trillion economy. Last week, we became $4 trillion economy despite COVID. And expectations are that India will add $1 trillion every year after 2030 for next 20 years. And this is only possible, this is only feasible if our higher education institution will prepare right kind of mindset right kind of mindset in the education system. We need outstanding teachers, engineers, doctors, philosophers in all spheres of life, and I am very hopeful that our higher education system will be able to deliver and will do a very good job, which is expected to be done.
Vinayji, this is a question for you. You talked about, you have 19,000 students now at IIT Kharagpur, which is amazing, actually. 16,000 students. And you have a number of joint degree programs with multiple universities. So you're already doing that partnership that we talked about. More collaboration, more recruitment from outside. Your ranking has gone up. You also talked about leadership of Global South, which I didn't get a chance to talk about it. This is really important. One thing that is remarkable thing that has happened with the current government's leadership is that, including in G20, it has taken on the mantle of solving problems for the Global South. I think that sense of responsibility that Shri Mohan Bhagwatji talked about this morning is apparent in what the government is doing, what academic institutions are doing. And then you also talked about creating news centers. But you ended with something which was very intriguing for me, which is that you're aiming for top 10 in the world. And that's a really remarkable goal. And I really give you kudos for thinking that big. What do you think is the timeline for getting to the top 10 position for IIT Kharagpur or any of the IITs?
I believe nothing is impossible. And therefore, unless you say to go to the moon, you will not go to even half a distance. And therefore, I'm sure that we will reach to the top 10 in the world, maybe 2030. This is a target that we are thinking of. We have gone, and I'm sure by the next year or so, when the QS ranking comes, we'll be jumping another 50 or so. We have our own confidence, and we know what we are working on. Because it is a competition and everybody knows what we are trying to do. Therefore, and I'm confident that the education system, and I will add to what Yogesh ji has said, that we will be also talking of more and more entrepreneurs, more and more startups, and more problem-solving students. In fact, we are trying to tell them that you should be job creators and not job seekers.
Absolutely.
And that is the way we are trying to involve them in all sorts of projects. And we have given them an opportunity that you could go to any department, any course that if you want to take for your enhancing your knowledge in a particular area, I think you can go ahead. And that sort of flexibility that has been given using the national education policy, which is already in vogue in the country. So that we have taken care of. We have allowed the students of arts also to take science courses, science students to take arts courses, and I said that Academy of Classical and Folk Arts is there with them, Center of Happiness is there with us, and I think we have Indian knowledge system in which all the 4 verticals, maybe 2,000 students have joined in these, and even in the dance and music that we have here. So that the stress which goes, and moreover, somebody was talking, he said that it is just a way of life, not only that I think he was talking that dancing in several or multiracial situations. No, in fact, it's a language which is universal language. And therefore, irrespective of which department or which language or which course a particular student is learning, if he goes for dance and music and something that he passions for, I think he will enhance his horizon of thinking only. And therefore, the Academy of Leadership has also been thought that we have to create leaders. We see that the good teachers are not very good administrators. I don't know what type of administrator I am, but yes, he's also a professor. He's also a very good professor, but we don't know. You need to tell us. But therefore, we need to also make our students good leaders. So in that, we are having even a leaders in which we want to call some of the politicians and also to learn from them and also to teach them. Thank you.
So within a generation, a top 10 school, I'm going to have to share this with Subhashish ji, the director of IIT Bombay. He's got a competition with you. Somaiya ji, you get the last word here on this Q&A, and then we'll open it up to our audience. You know, wonderful personal journey, and I'm really admire your grandfather's vision. He started school within 3 years of starting a company. That shows the kind of people we had at that time. My parents are both teachers, so I really admire that vision. You know, you talked about this, you know, this personal story of you going to Cornell because it was a world-class institution versus Somaiya, which was a Bombay institution. There was a bit of a tinge of irony in that comment that when you made that, and I'm sure it bothered your grandfather and your father, so they asked you to come back and you know. But there is a comment that you made which I really find pretty interesting: is learn from us, do not become us. You have a soul, keep it. Can you talk about what that soul is? I tried to sort of extract that in my talk. What do you see as India's soul, and what can be a unique, you know, competitive advantage, if I could use that term, for India in its educational framework, not following Macaulay's education framework, but something that's uniquely Indian with Indian soul?
At many levels, I would say we are a multilingual country. Many of us have grown up speaking many languages, 4 or 5. He can freely quote Barelvi, so could, I mean, I'm just saying it's something that we do naturally. When we are learning from a Western monolingual culture, which has learned to remove other cultures. So if they went to a Native American culture, they removed it. We have learned to coexist and grow and also, you know, be stronger for it. So I think that is, so if let's assume that we are teaching history. And if you wanted to teach history of Shivaji, and if you wanted to teach that Shivaji history, do you necessarily want to only teach it in English? If you also brought in primary sources in Marathi, just as an example, or if you got Narsi Mehta's bhajans in Gujarati there, if you're teaching Kabir, if you brought music into it, I'm just saying, would you firstly empower somebody who feels disempowered? If you had a person, let's look at the CUET that has come up. Because I learned so many rural schools, you find access being difficult. So I'm just saying, suppose you empowered them by creating a much more multilingual, rich environment. I think that's one example. I think our spiritual heritage is remarkable for its richness, diversity. You know, so I think that whether it's in dance, music, literature, composition, language, I think all that is strong, and we need that. Yeah.
Those are great examples, and I can see where that could ultimately go. That's remarkable. So let's just do a big round of applause for the panel, and then we'll open it up to the audience. I know there are microphones making the round. You get the first question in the back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just keep it close to your mouth, actually.
Professor Somaiya, one of the questions I actually had was, when are we getting our Nalandas and Takshashilas back? And you actually answered, and I appreciate you working towards getting the Somaiya University on that track. However, the conference started with a quality education for all, and that should start from the very beginning. And in fact, you just mentioned about rural India. And Professor Anurag, you mentioned about we losing our Gurukul. Is there something in the works to kind of implement a Gurukul kind of a system for rural India where there are limited resources and limited trainings and all of the things that you mentioned are challenges? What are the probability and possibility of getting that in as one of the very unique things that India has had in the past and can be fruitful in even our current situations?
So I'll just quickly mention something, and I would love for you to speak to your perspective. I actually met with the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, in New York in June when he was there before the Biden summit. And his question was about skilling. There were 7 other university presidents in that meeting with me, and they were all talking about degrees. And Prime Minister's question was, what about skilling? How do you create skills for rest of my population? And my response to him was that health technology innovation doesn't have to happen, either use of it or coming up with it has to happen in tertiary care institutions or higher education institutions. They can happen in rural areas. There are ASHA workers, there are A&Ms who could be trained in innovation framework, and they could find problems. It doesn't require advanced education to understand problems and be a partner in technology development. The technology experts can do the technology development, but you can be the problem identifier. You can be part of the partnership. So I think there are ways you can actually bring education of that kind to distributed setting, to rural setting, which is what I talked about in my slide. It's absolutely possible, and I see that's what's going to be flipping of the healthcare, at least in India, is going to be the game changer for 5 billion people today in the world that don't have meaningful access to healthcare, and also it will bring a lot of those people into the mainstream of education or mainstream of skills.
Should I? I just think first we need to invest in physical infrastructure in all our schools, wherever they were, maybe they could be urban or rural. Very good physical infrastructure. We need to have very good teachers also over there. You give, firstly, those are necessary conditions. They may not be sufficient. And then, of course, what kind of programming you have to make it happen.
I'll add to this. In fact, the basics of fundamentals are put in the schools. And you know that the private schools are better than government schools, right? Many places. And therefore, the government has taken up a very strong move. And in the National Education Policy on page 26, it is written that about 25,000 brilliant school teachers will be produced out of the higher education institutions. And that's why Department of Education has been opened in the IITs, in the central universities to take care of that, so that we don't have those problems of this kind, because at that level itself, you see that coaching centers, the students are going who have no money, but they have to sell their land, etc., and they go for coaching because they are not being given right from the beginning. And it is also a move that the primary school teachers and the higher secondary school teachers will be getting more or less a parity on the scale as well, salary as well. So there is a good move by the government in this regard. And by 2030, I think when you have 25,000 top school teachers with good quality of the payment, etc., I'm sure the problem will be solved. Thank you.
I just want to add here, government is very serious about this, and presently I am also having additional charge of National Council for Teachers Education. We have launched a program, we call it ITEP, Integrated Teachers Education Program, which we are admitting teachers, those who are interested in teaching, school teaching after +2, and premier institution of Bharat are requested to start this program. All IITs, ISC Bangalore, NITs, some of the premier institutions like University of Delhi, BHU. So we are experimenting that. It has started in 41 institutions, and this year this program will be enhanced in another 100 institutions. Slowly and steadily, we are focusing on that only. What Professor has said is correct, but this is on the priority of the government.
So I know we are running out of time, so we'll do one question.
Yes, sir. My compliments to all the 3 panelists. You have delivered the excellent job in within short time. But, sir, my salute to all the present Vice Chancellor, panelists, and all other experts who are doing excellent job for education and driving the entire youth and nation building. But, sir, do you feel that you will have still remain the beauty of autonomous or autonomy? You talk about, we take the lessons of Tapovan and Gurukul, but everyone knows that Gurukul and Tapovan were entirely autonomous. No king can dare to enter in Tapavans without Rishis or Kulguru's permission. Can you, are you enjoying this sort of autonomy or power or, I would say, respect or honor against the bureaucrats or the present government? And will it not harm your delivering the goods to the present education system?
Universities are autonomous in nature, but if you are 100% dependent on a funding agency, you have to follow rules and regulation of that funding agency also. Because law of nature is not that. You decide something to spend, but someone has to pay for it. So, but yes, when it comes to the academic autonomy, there is no issue. But when it comes to administrative autonomy, there are different viewpoints. There are different viewpoints, but yes, technically, yes, universities are autonomous in nature. IITs are autonomous.
Yes.
इनको तो कोई छूता भी नहीं है, देखता भी नहीं इनकी तरफ. IITs are totally autonomous, and university system is also practically autonomous. But yes, there may be some issues here and there.
Yeah, in fact, that's what I wanted to tell. He has already told that we are fully autonomous, sir. And I can tell you that there is absolutely no interference of the government.
No.
And all the course curriculum, etc., that we are defining and we are conducting the way we want in the interest of the country and for the global need. So absolutely, IITs, no question of that. I am sure even the top central funding universities are also on the same lines.
No issues, no issues.
And yes, thank you.
So I know, please go ahead. Please.
एक ही लाइन सिर्फ,
एक
ही लाइन कि जो नालंदा तक्षशिला की हम बात करते हैं, अच्छी बात है पुरानी बात करना, लेकिन अब पास्ट तो पास्ट हो गया ना. अपनी नई नालंदा या तक्षशिला जब हम नहीं बनाएंगे तो बात कैसे बनेगी? और ये भारत को ध्यान रखना चाहिए. नालंदा भी थी, तक्षशिला भी थी, उसकी हम रक्षा नहीं कर पाए. भारत गुलाम हुआ, सब कुछ हुआ. हमारे में क्या कमियां थी, इसको भी बहुत सोचने की जरूरत है. मैं आज एश्योर कर रहा हूं, बहुत साल बाद भारत के बॉर्डर सेफ हुए हैं. बहुत साल बाद ये दिन आए हैं कि आज भारत के बॉर्डर सेफ हैं. आज आप शिक्षा के विस्तार की बात कर सकते हैं क्योंकि सीमाएं सारी सुरक्षित हैं. भारत की सीमाएं सुरक्षित होंगी तो शिक्षा भी पनपेगी. अदरवाइज क्या होगा? बनाते रहिए विश्वविद्यालय, दूसरे तोड़ जाते हैं उनको, और हमसे ज्यादा कौन जानता है.
हाँ, हम इसमें थोड़ा सा हम ऐड कर देना चाहते हैं कि हम लोगों का इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम करीब करीब सब IITs में है और यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में भी है. और हमारी जो बिल्डिंग है वो 130 साल पुरानी है, वो जेल थी. उसको हम लोग, हमारा विचार है कि बाय 2030 इट विल बी ऑन द लाइन्स ऑफ तक्षशिला एंड नालंदा, बिकॉज we want to have that building to have the whole Indian knowledge system of all the verticals into that. And we are going to invite people. We are already on the spree of inviting foreigners from all across the world to learn what was there in our Vedas and what is the current knowledge that we have. We are having a comparison and just check what we had there. So this is going, and I think somebody was talking, so I wanted to tell this answer that yes, we are having at IIT Kharagpur 130-year-old building, which is now Shahid Bhavan, but that is going to be the next Takshila of Bharat.
That's a really good note to end on. Let's not do any Q&A. Audience, the panelists are going to be available to interact. I would like to end because I've been told very clearly to end on time, and I dare not violate that. Let's just do a big round of applause for our panelists, Yogesh ji, Virendra ji, Samir ji. Actually, this was such a privilege for me to have such leaders of academia in India as my fellow panelists, and it's really a joy. It's a privilege for all of you to be able to hear them. They are really shaping the future of higher education in the country, and I would argue in the global south, and I would say ultimately the world. Thank you for that. I would also like to thank Nachiketa ji and Anil ji for helping run this session. And last but not the least, can we do a big round of applause for Amit ji? Yes. He did a phenomenal job of keeping time so that I didn't have to. Yeah. Thank you.